they're going to tell you to uplift yourself, but then they're going to ignore everything that's formed against you in themselves and anybody else who looks like you and people who don't even look like you, right? Just simply the poor, women, you know what I mean, indigenous. Like, they tell you they want you to uplift yourself, but they don't really want to talk about what's downtrodden you or down pressing you, right? There's a few people in America and in this system that believe that everyone else needs to be more accountable for their contributions because they found their way through a landmine. See, America is a landmine full of traps and tricks, and it turns you into somebody that frames everyone else as lazy or lacking will or strength if they're not able to navigate capitalism in America, even though it's the most entrenched, barbaric, unethical style of society known to man ever, right? But people will shame you and guilt you for not being able to navigate it effectively. So we're going to talk about that today, right? I want to frame the conversation around, you know what I mean, acknowledging the long history of social activism amongst black men, right? You know what I mean? People like Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, right? They fought for justice and equality, right? And while their efforts were noble, they were always met with untimely deaths, right? Just want to highlight the risk of being a social advocate, right? But anytime black men always speak up, they speak for everybody, right? They speak for everybody to be safe, be seen, and be a part of it. And that's why I always find it interesting when everybody else tells us that we need to figure things out ourselves and that it's our responsibility to do things for ourselves. But when you were under oppression or you were not being served correctly, we made sure we fought for you, right? We always make sure we fight for other people when the time is needed. But when it comes time for us to be fought for, we need to make better decisions. We need to lift ourselves up and we need to stop complaining. So I want to continue, right? Because let's talk about that double standard, right? Capitalism's promise and then its actual reality, right? Which I mentioned in the introduction. It's like capitalism is also, it's like it's usually touted as if it's the path to success. Like being a capitalist is the way to being successful. Yet the majority of people, including black men at the highest rate, end up in debt or poverty, right? Most people in America are in debt or impoverished, right? There are statistics that I look up frequently, whether it be the fact that over 60% of Americans don't have $1,000 to their name, right? And more than 80% of Americans don't have 3 to 6 months of their monthly expenses saved up in the case of an emergency. But yet everyone advocates for capitalism as if it's benefiting them, right? And that people create debt traps for them so that they can have moments of inclusion but never actually have any ownership over their destiny or the route in their lives. So I was just always interested of that double standard of capitalism where it's like, even though people say it's the path to success, no one's succeeding from it. Like, no one's succeeding from capitalism yet. And I'll stop right there because some people will say that they can define their own success. But I'm saying, how would you use capitalism and capitalism defines its success and then you not define your success as what it is to be a capitalist? That's contradictory, it's hypocritical, and it's erroneous. Like it's not factual or logical. It's not you taking control of your destiny, or it's not you making your own path. Like it's being illogical. It's being wrong. Like you can't be a capitalist, be $90,000 in debt, and then call yourself successful. That's not being successful at being a capitalist. That's not even you being successful at what you're doing because you're supposed to be capitalizing. You're supposed to be a capitalist. So if you're not capitalizing, you're not succeeding, bro. You know what I mean? Society pressures black men to participate in the system that is stacked against them, right? So people will make you feel crazy if you don't want to be a capitalist as a black man, even though this system has started with your mothers and your brothers and sisters being the primary asset to capitalize on, the primary labor and group of people to capitalize on. So no, why would I advocate for something that has destroyed my people and my community in countless occasions because it can personally serve me? Like that's dirty work. Like that, and that's what a lot of people get to talking about is the reality of it is, even though capitalism has cost the lives of people who look like me, especially like capitalism has cost many people's lives, but it is inherently and institutionally set upon people who look like us. It was created, intended to capitalize on people who look like us. And then you'll have people who look like us advocate for it, right? Which I can understand, right? You're afraid. You're scared. You're not a fighter. So you just don't want to die fighting for what's right. So you like, look, the only life I have is to be within the system of capitalism. Even if I lose, at least I'm not being sent to jail, or I'm not being sent to the grave, right? I'm able to occupy this world, even if it's in a state of debt slavery, even if it's in a state of failed capitalism, I still get to live. And that's a life worth living, right? And so even those who do achieve that financial success, right? So everybody, I want to just get some money and fight for what I think and get some money, right? They still have a great expense on their happiness and community, right? And moral composition is then diluted, right? Moral composition is then diluted, meaning the things you used to stand for, you used to be a part of the church, you used to have a nationality, you used to stand up for inequality, and now all those things are out of the window because you need to maintain your own success. So you advocating and giving money back to your people takes you out of your trajectory for success. You having an interest to fight for people who don't have the same ability as you did, the same stuff you fought through, right? You're saying they should fight through it, and that there should not be no programs or any assistance for that because you had to fight through it. So they can technically fight through it, but should they have to? Did you feel like that was the life that you should have been living when you was going through it? Like, did you feel like that was a fair way of doing things? I would think that a large amount of this belief system comes from being colonized. Because when you're colonized by Judeo-Christian religions, there's doctrine that states spiritually that the innocent are meant to be slaughtered, that the innocent are meant to be used in a chess game to decide the fate of humanity, that the innocence of people is only a commodity in the efforts of expressing God's likeness, right? That's how our colonizers wrote it. They wrote it like innocent people must die in the expression of God's nature, which God's nature is not to expose or destroy or remove his own innocent children from the world. Like, if you go back into real text about spirituality, you'll see that, but this isn't about that, right? Obviously, spirituality goes a lot into this, but we're more so dealing with psychology. Your psychology has been dented in because of these Judeo-Christian spiritual systems that indoctrinate you to believe that innocent people being lost and slaughtered in the pursuit of life is all a part of the game. That's all a part of the game. Then people start regurgitating like scientists like Darwinism. You know what I mean? Where it's like natural selection and evolution means that the weaker things in nature will be consumed and destroyed by the stronger, more organized, entities or animals in nature. And it's like we adopt these weird, racist, psychologically psychopathic thought processes that validated criminals and pedophiles and rapists and colonists and capitalists. And we adopt in these things and then wonder why our mental health is shot out. Wonder why our spirit and our day-to-day lives are constantly at odds, because you trying to live a righteous life, you trying to live up to a greater purpose and standard and uplift your higher self, and you doing the demon work. You doing the most unheinous, unselective, unrewarding work that life has to offer. And because they know how to make a dollar from it, they've made it suggestively, or they've made it suggestible, I should say, like, oh, you could just do this. Oh, you could just do this. And then once they've completely destroyed and decimated everything in their path, then they outlaw you from doing it. So they sold you tobacco and then told you couldn't sell weed, right? They incarcerated an entire group of people and then told you that you didn't have the right to police yourself. You get what I'm saying? It's like they did all the dirty work, and then when it came time for you to do for self, they outlaw it. Oh, yeah, we're gonna destroy all the farmland and all the herbs, but then outlaw alternative medicine as a provable method. It's like y'all destroyed everything first to make sure that no one could do nothing but come to you. So it's like y'all advocate for these kind of people who are destroyers so that you can get a little bit of what capitalism got to offer. And capitalism haven't even done nothing for you yet. You ain't even benefited from capitalism, but you advocating for its necessary evil. somebody's got to be poor. Someone has to lose for someone to win. Someone has to lose for someone to win. Like, where y'all be getting this stuff from? Like, they be the craziest rhetoric I've ever heard that don't even be benefiting y'all. But like, you swear it makes so much sense, and it don't make no sense for you. It only makes sense for your pursuit of what America offers as life, which is, oh, you could be rich and you can get massages and travel and all this other stuff while everybody else sits in America and goes to work and barely gets by. And that's natural. That's normal. Right. So the weaponization of social expectations, right? So I like to use hip hop now. This is the part where we transition into hip hop, right? Where addressing the criticism black men face in the hip hop industry, where they are told to avoid certain behaviors like objectifying women and glorifying violence, while others profit from these very images. So we tell the black man to not capitalize on what hip hop has endorsed, right? And a lot of black men got paid. We are going through the Diddy era right now, where he commercialized champagne, designer clothes, high spending, like big nightlife energy. You know what I'm saying? Living at the quality of life that other people can't access consistently, the life that they dream of. Like, he made that a part of hip hop culture. And then now the very same things that he endorsed in order to climb that ladder of success, objectifying women, right? Glorifying certain violence. Y'all are now criminalizing them for it, but y'all utilized it to endorse your own fun and your own entertainment for 3 decades, right? The same imagery that Tupac utilizes to be the greatest rapper ever is the same objectifying imagery and glorifying of violence that y'all claim that y'all are trying to eradicate now. But every artist who's still the main popular artist still utilize these things, right? And now it's gotten to the point where other groups of people want to be able to do it, but then guilt black men and women for doing it. So it's like, it's okay when other people profit from these images of glorifying violence and objectifying women, whether it be videos, movies, Megan Thee Stallion doing the thing for the Democratic Party, you know, black men doing sexual favors for other men in movies to advance their social status. You know what I'm saying? People using drugs and violence to move forward their social reputation and like become that person in the neighborhood. Like, y'all can make millions of dollars off these movies, right? Supercell literally was about people in the hood who had sickle cell, and then they got superpowers from it because of their traumatic experiences in life, right? So we can always use this imagery. Everyone's allowed to use this imagery, but if black women and men use this imagery, then we're perpetuating the decline of our community and, you know what I mean, self-hate. But it's like, so what is everybody else doing when they're doing it? If you're not black and you're doing it, what is that called? Like, because it's never no problem with anybody else. And then if anyone else does it, you still get the blame. Oh, stop following them. Stop listening to them. You need to take more responsibility for what you consume. And it's like, okay, well, why can't I create it and consume it myself and make money from it and leave you out of it? Maybe I should charge you, right, to be a part of it. You know what I mean? Instead of letting you get it. So let's move on from that point, because I know these are the reasons why I'm not monetized on Instagram now, right? Because anytime I start talking about race directly, they completely like demonetize my content. So I'm gonna have to put this in the subscription, because there's no way that they'll platform me for talking about this. But it's just so interesting how everybody wants you to be so responsible for the imagery of hip hop while also being accountable for the result of that imagery. But no one else has to be, though. Jewish people don't have to be. White people don't have to be. When other cultures of people are mocking you and mimicking you, they don't have to be, right? And anyone who's in the most egregious, oppressive, violent version of it, they don't have to, right? So as an advocate for black people, I need to be mindful that every black person don't want to be like this. But if Cardi B tells you, fuck them, then I get some money, that does not have to be disseminated, right? That does not have to be discerned for which audience it's for. The audience needs to discern for themselves if it's for them. But me being an advocate for you being financially literate, before I open my mouth, I need to be very, very discerning on who and when and where and why I'm distributing that message, because everybody might not want to live like that, right? So accountability versus responsibility. The way society holds black men accountable for societal issues like crime and poverty while failing to provide the necessary support and resources to address these problems, crazy work. So everyone else can get a program or some assistance, but once again, going to what I said initially, as a black man, you're supposed to take care of these things yourself, or you're not even a man. You're not even qualified as being a man. But white men get inheritances. Spanish men work together in businesses like wholeheartedly. Like if one of us start a concrete business, we all work there. If carpentry, all work there. Mechanic, all work there. So Mexican men, they use group economics. White men utilize inheritance. Asian men utilize cultural inclusion, right? So it's like they intentionally don't buy no seaweed, no rice, no pots and pans, no insurance, no real estate. They only shop with one another. Same thing with Jewish people, right? Okay. So then it's like, and then let's look at other people who are not organized that way. There's assistance for home for gay people. There's assistance for women. There's assistance for the disabled. There's assistance for all types of people. You can immigrate and get assistance, right? So let's say on two sides, whether you want to be the marginalized one who needs to be actually assisted with a program, or you want to be the one who just literally uplifts themselves and works on the issue yourself. You are not afforded that resource or luxury at all, right? If black men work together, the first thing we always say is, oh, that's a meat fest. A room full of black men becomes a meat fest. It's already indoctrinated and looked down upon when black men are in a room, heightening each other's image or acknowledging one another's interests. It's automatically a meat fest. So they already trying to deter you from wanting to work amongst each other and figure out what could be a legitimate effort to organize around. But let's take it a little deeper, right? I've never seen a fund for black men. I can go scroll on Instagram right now and I can find funds for black women. Specifically, it says this fund is for black women. Do not apply if you're not a black woman. Right? I've never seen one of those for black men. I've never seen a only for black men funding. Now, obviously, as a black man, I can participate in any other funding. But I'm saying I've never seen a program specifically, right? There's programs for black women. There's programs for women. There's programs for LGBTQ. There's even programs for specific schools. Like if you go to this school, this fund is only for you. But there's never been a fund for just black men, for black male advancement and black male determination, right? I'm not personally interested in those things, but I know everybody's not me. Everybody's not a great thinker, transcending fighter for their freedom. So yeah, some of our brothers need a program. They need some assistance, and these are the things that I try to build. And people, the first thing that they say is, oh man, that's not going to succeed if you don't include other people. It's always that. It's always my responsibility or our responsibility as black men to always incorporate other people. But if we as black men look to be incorporated with the things that other people are doing, we are lazy and we are not doing the work. And I'm going to keep reiterating this throughout the entire thing because this is something that I've recognized, and I'm going to put this in my subscription because I don't want nobody to even think that I don't want nobody to see that I'm thinking this way, because people will weaponize it against me, because that's what they're capitalizing on. They're capitalizing me advocating for my own interest in my own community and my own people. They'll weaponize that and make it seem as if I'm complaining or I'm discrediting or discriminating or leaving people out. And it's just all capitalism. That's what I'm starting to realize is they want to disarm you, black man, so that you don't lift yourself up at the expense of others. But everybody's willing to uplift themselves at your expense. Everybody's willing to uplift themselves at your expense. And then they want to hold you to the godly standard of doing everything righteous and within justice and within reciprocity. But everybody getting off on you, King. You know what I'm saying? And one thing that I've realized about being a man is you got to have something that you can come home to that's your peace. See, as black men, we used to think that was our home, but we no longer have that place, right? So now what we got to do is redesign where our peace is aligned at, because as we go out in the world, and we're going to now have to strategically utilize this strategy of capitalism while holding on to our morals. And that's the creativity part now, right? The creative part is we're going to have to go into this capitalistic system because our people have been completely indoctrinated away from group economics, socialism, or any type of hand-to-hand horizontal work. It's over. We're not going to mobilize that effort. We are now a oligarchy. We are now a hierarchy, right? We are a monarchy. we have to follow a rich black person. That's the only person if Jay-Z say, let's do it, he can pull out 2 million black people. If Beyonce do it, 3 million black people. If Barack Obama say it, 5 million black people. But people are associating their ability to rise through capitalism. If you want to influence American black people or American people to do something black, you got to have money. People don't care about your reputation, your social work, your psychological profile, any of those things that revolve around morals or values. They care if you're able to construct a bag in this system, because that is the lifeblood of how we survive. So I understand that. If you can't feed the people, you can't lead the people, right? And so I understand before we used to live and feed off of our moral integrity, but now we're not there no more. This place has stripped us completely of our language, our spiritual direction, as well as our intentions to do for self. So now we have to participate in this madness, especially considering the fact that the majority of us, 40 million something odd black people who amass nearly $2 trillion in net worth as a community, seem to not believe that we can do things on our own without, getting a little bit of help from outside groups or entities. And then sometimes if we do have to do things for ourselves, our immediate goal and effort is to do it on the backs of one another, right? We want to use each other to make money and then get money from other people's communities. That's literally always our strategy. We're never looking at, we want to at least work really good at someone else's job, or we want to use our people who are not so fortunate to offer and sacrifice to a larger group so that we could find fortune for ourselves, right? These are typically the two go-to strategies for us as black people. So as black men, I need you to be mindful of this. Instead of trying to open your arms and open your heart and be so widely acceptable for everything, and no one's accepting of you. No one's accepting of your trauma, your triggers, your history, your lack, anything you've gone through is something that is an excuse at this point. You're just creating an excuse, bro. You need to lift yourself up. No one wants to help you lift yourself up. And even though everyone's going to look for you to assist them and their upliftment, you are not guaranteed that same thing. There is no reciprocity. Stop thinking that it's going to be that way, because that's what's messing you up. Advancing yourself. And if you don't want to advance yourself, then I don't even know how you ended up here this long. Like, why are you listening to me rant? It's because you're in denial. If you're still listening to me rant and like you don't truly believe you want to advance yourself, you're clearly lying to yourself, because you're still here. You're listening to me talk about uplifting yourself. So I would encourage you to, especially if you're watching the recording, right? That means you paid $20 for the subscription. I would suggest that you take some consideration of this. But if you're just here for the live, shouts out to everybody who pulled up so far, then yeah, I would encourage you to utilize this opportunity to consider how to uplift yourself, because otherwise, what are you even still doing here? And so let's continue, right? The weaponization of social expectations. So it's okay when they do it, but when I do it, there's a problem, right? The role of racism and discrimination, right? So obviously we know racism and discrimination exists, and it's difficult for them to succeed. It's difficult for niggas to succeed through this. But the part that I found interesting is the Constitution and its amendments, right? They're often used to justify the status quo, while in practice they fail to protect the rights and dignify anybody. But and the Constitution only mentions white property owning white men. So you not even being a white man was good enough in the Constitution's eyes. You had to be a property owning white man, and most of the property most white men owned was a person and not even a home. Most white men owned a slave before they owned any land, and then they owned a house before they owned. They owned land before they even had a house. So that's why you always needed a house to build. You need a slave to build your house. I heard someone say it ingeniously, like, you know how cars have a bad effect on the environment, the ecosystem, but obviously we all drive cars because they forward our advancement as society, right? You can get to work, you can transport people, make use of your time. They said in the days of slavery, buying a slave was like buying a car, because it had the same result of forwarding your economic movement, right? So imagine having a fleet of cars that you could rent out. You could make a lot more money, right? You'd have a dealership. You could sell cars. That's what selling slaves was like. So you got to think of a white person in America right now with no car. Do you see how they have to navigate economically the inconvenience and the lack of privileges that they can access due to a lack of that car, right? The car also aligns them with other financial institutions and loan agreements. The car is a building block for you in society. Everybody gets a job so that they can get a car. That is the American way. That's how regular people bought a slave. That was the reality. Oh, I'm ready to move forward economically. I'm ready to mobilize and move forward economically. Time for me to buy a slave. Hey, son, you know it's almost that time. You're getting older. It's time to get your first slave. Right? It was that common. That was the way that you moved yourself forward economically. It wasn't, people didn't look at it like, oh my gosh, I'm this fucking bad person. Right? You don't buy a car and be like, I'm a bad person. It actually takes an environmentalist to put you on with what is wrong with driving a car. And that's the same thing that it took for abolitionists and political members of America at the time to do. They had to slow other white people down and be like, yo, this is unethical. This is not moral. And the social and environmental issues that go along with this are much more larger than what you're benefiting from in the current time. So like, I always like using that example where it's like the lady was teaching us like the same way you would move forward your economic mobility in America today with a car, that would be the equivalent value of having a slave. So if you have 2 cars, you can go more places. You can provide a car to your child or your wife. If you have 5 cars, you might be on Turo and you can send your cars out to get rented, right? If you have 5 slaves, you clearly don't need them all day. You can send some of them out there to do things. And if you have a label full of artists, right, you can deploy them to as many tours as you like. You feel me? That's the economic mobility of what slavery was able to do. It was like the equivalent of a car. It was like getting your first car. So think about how much a car improves your economic mobility in America. That's what having a slave did in 1724, right? So my call to action today is like encouraging people to do the right thing, bro. I ain't gonna get into all of that. A lot of this stuff is very, very, very simple work. But I felt that to be said because I was talking to somebody and I could recognize that they didn't care about what I was saying, and they were actually offended by me having this position and this point of view. But I understand why, because as the black man takes more power back from himself and from others, it doesn't give anybody any leverage. Now I'm not. Now let's reimagine this, right? Let's say I didn't let you into my hip hop show unless you paid what I felt like you needed to pay to be endorsed in my culture. Let's say I didn't let you view my mindset on social media and I only made you pay for it. But let's say all other black men did that, right? Because right now, if I don't do it, y'all go exploit or find 3 other black men. And if those 3 black men stop, then y'all will go find 10 other ones. And then if those 10 stop, y'all will go create 10 pseudo versions. But like the only way you can create those 10 pseudo versions is off of the archetypes and the downloads and the blueprints of what we provide. So if for 5 weeks, right, black men stopped providing the media, music, entertainment, politics, and everybody alike content or intellectual property to work with. If we just stopped providing them things to work with and make money from, you would watch jobs drop from the floor because a lot of people can't make no money without you, King. Their whole business is based on capitalizing on you, capitalizing on the fact that your family is not listening to you, capitalizing on the fact that your family don't believe in you, capitalizing on the fact that y'all don't know y'all spirituality, capitalizing on the fact that everyone in your family is afraid of the risk of economic mobility. They're just capitalizing on the music, the imagery, the sound of your voice, the way that you look. There's people who will go out and dress like you. They don't get criminalized. But then if you dress like that, you need to take more responsibility for your image. So that's all I got today. I appreciate y'all even being willing to stand in for this. I went in for 30 minutes, but I felt like this was I was talking to myself. I really needed to talk to myself because I've been someone who has bought in on the idea of the world being a perfect place, right? I genuinely believe that the world is heaven and that we create heaven on earth. But I learned in America that a lot of people are more enthralled and enthusiastic about capitalism. You know what I mean? And that requires me to be more mindful of that, because I used to think that we all genuinely wanted to help the poor, that we wanted to feed the people and, you know what I mean, gun violence and all these things that people say. But in reality, if you're just truly telling people to do for themselves, then why are we advocating and acting as if we really care about what the divisiveness or the effects of capitalism are? Because in the moment you ask somebody for something, they tell you you need to do for self. Let's really break this down, because I only got I got a few people here left, right? I got 3 people left. Shouts out to Achilles and PJ. I really want y'all to like hear me out, right? How at the same time can you tell black men that they need to stop listening to hip hop, they need to take control of what they consume, right? But they're not being raised by a stable household. There's guns everywhere. Everyone has them. And then you tell them that they need to get their own money, even though that they're not being hired at an equal rate, right? These are all facts. Like, these are all things that are known. People are creating a system and opportunities that don't include you, but then while at the same time telling you to fix your own problems. What's your problem, though? The fact that you know how to effectively terrorize and capitalize on them, right? Your parents are absent, so you run in the streets, you selling drugs, you doing whatever that is afforded or directly given to you and as an opportunity, because you got to capitalize on that, King. You're going to have to capitalize on that because your parents aren't even home. They don't even care if you get an education. They don't really care if anything happens for you, because by the time you turn 18, they're going to tell you to do for self anyway. Even if they were absent and not completely complicit in your success, they're going to tell you when you become an adult to figure that out regardless if they didn't do their job. So why even consider what your family's saying at that point as a black man? Why would you care? At that point, you might as well just do whatever you feel fit. You might as well objectify people who look like you, sell drugs to them, violently attack them with a weapon in your own interest. Run a couple scams, because that's capitalism. That is where everyone leaves themselves vulnerable. They say they left guns, liquor, and drugs in your community, and you should have said no. Okay. Well, if I looked litty popping with the section and you fell for it, you should have been more aware, right? That's the logic. That is the logic that a capitalist is saying. But when the black man do it, then the police get called. And that's the number everybody knows, is they can call the police on you. And as a black man, you scared of the police. I get it. But it's time to shift the narrative, right? We too smart for this, bro. We way too smart for this to know that they not in our interest. But you know what it is? We're looking for their validation and their approval. We want them to see that we're doing good work, that we're doing the self-care, that we're doing the self-love, and that we're non-violent, so that they'll accept us. But they don't never want to accept us, because if they accept us, then they can't capitalize on us, and then now they can't get no money. They can't have the luxuries and the privileges in life that they have, because you got to understand, a lot of the American privileges come from people capitalizing on other people, right? And as black men, you need to uphold your moral integrity. That's all what matters, right? Your moral integrity matters the most to you. You know what I mean? Your morals and values, that's what matters to us. So we're going to have to strategize on how to go into society, extract our thing, and then come backwards to operate within our moral construct and our integral principles, because ain't nobody trying to uphold that, bro. Ain't nobody a part of it anymore. A lot of these ladies, they've clocked out in the name of capitalism. And if you're able to conquer capitalism, then they will come back to your kingdom. Let me say that again. As black men, if you're able to go out there and conquer capitalism, then you can have the adoption and the authorization for a black woman to let you lead. But if you can't conquer capitalism, she doesn't really want you. Because the moment she accepts you, she's going to tell you to go out there and conquer capitalism, so she doesn't have to endure it anymore anyway. So you're really doing yourself a disservice by even thinking that, even as it's not about healing, bro. You think it's about healing. Oh, if I heal, she'll love me. Bro, I've been healed. We've been healed so much. We way more healed than our fathers, but we still not acceptable. We've healed a tremendous amount. But because we're not complementary to everybody else's privileges and worldview, that makes us toxic. So if I'm not willing to assist in you exercising your frivolous privileges and freedoms, things that you don't need to do, just things you want to do, because you have the ability to do it. You got a little money in your pocket now. If I'm not endorsing and helping for that, then I'm wrong. But once again, if it's liquor and drugs and clubs and all that stuff, right? That's stuff y'all like to do. Y'all love going to the club. Y'all love stripping. Y'all love liquor. Y'all love za. But let me endorse it and it's wrong, right? Let me make some money off of endorsing it is wrong. But if you go into the club, if you go into the dispensary, if you going anywhere else, it's cool for them to do it, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's like, y'all got to stop believing this whole narrative of you're not doing it right. No, you're just not doing what everybody else wants you to do, and that's when they hate you. But as soon as you make some money for it, though, right? As soon as you conquer capitalism, there are women who will sleep with the same rapper. They will sleep with the same drug dealer. They will sleep with the same misogynist. They will sleep with the same child abuser. They will sleep with the same person that they know is doing wrong because they've navigated capitalism and can provide for them in a manner where they don't have to endure it any further. So on that note, I'm going to let y'all rock. I'm about to get up out of here. I'm about to go do the work, right? I've awakened in a manner where I'm like, I've been keeping a lot of consideration of others in my mind, but I'm learning now that that's not what is being designed for me. So I'm about to go out of here and really just create the world I want to live in. And I'm not going to relinquish or reserve myself based on what other people feel and think, because they're really not going to come around and help me anyway. They're not really going to be a part of what I'm trying to build on. And, and being open-minded and open-hearted for those who are. So I'll see y'all later.